TII Item 463, May 7th, 2018, iOS 11.4, Beta 3 and 4, and we're in the money.
Welcome to Today in iPhone.
I like it a lot.
Today in iPhone.
Hey, Google!
Oh yeah.
My beautiful iPhone, which I never have out of my hand and that I do everything with and has become an extension of who I am.
This episode is sponsored by Molecule. For $75 off your first order, visit molekule.com and at checkout, enter TII. Today's episode is brought to you by Storyworth. For $20 off, visit storyworth.com/TII. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob, and you are listening to the Today in iOS podcast. First up, I want to thank Porter from Porter's podcast and my son for sending the music you hear in the background. Porter said, "Hey Dad, the song was recorded on an iPad Pro using GarageBand. The song is called 3-in-1, and I transferred it to your computer using AirDrop. Regards, Porter." Thanks to Porter for this music, and folks, I'll put the full song at the end of this episode and also in the bonus button for episode 463 at the TII app. I also want to thank, me for the artwork for this week's show. It is a selfie of me in front of the Apple Store at Apple's new Spaceship campus in Cupertino. Yes, I traveled to the Holy Land and was able to visit the Spaceship shop and see the Spaceship building from there, and, at least the outside. Still very impressive. Per the Spaceship Apple Store, it is across the street, just east of the campus, and beyond having the store, there is also a coffee bar there, as well as a place to sit outside in this area, sit down, get some Wi-Fi, which I did for a couple of hours, and catched up on emails after some meetings. And while I was watching to see if anyone walked by with a phone I didn't recognize yet, sorry, nothing to report there. In the store, you can buy a special Spaceship Apple t-shirt for just $40 each. What a bargain. For the artwork, the text was added with the Over app. Folks, you can see this artwork in the free TI app via the bonus button for episode 463 or at instagram.com/todayios and also at facebook.com/todayios. If you have some artwork and or music that you have created on your iOS device that you would like to share with the audience, please email to me at todayios@gmail.com. Please make sure to include which app or apps you use to create said artwork and or music. Folks, when I say TII is everywhere, it is everywhere, and now it is on Alexa. We have our own skill. This is not that horrible abomination from AnyPod or TuneIn. They're both horrible. This is a real dedicated TII skill that will remember where you left off and let you jump around. To enable, simply say, quote, "Alexa, enable TII," unquote. Or enable it from the Alexa app. Then once enabled, say, quote, "Alexa, play TII," unquote. That's it. Once in the episode, you can say, quote, "Alexa, ask TII to go back 45 seconds," unquote. Or go forward or back any amount of time. You can ask her to go to another episode, such as, quote, "Alexa, ask TII to go to episode 459, unquote. Happy to finally have my own dedicated skill for TII, which you can find in the Alexa skill store by searching for TII at amazon.com. You can search there as well for in the Alexa skills section, and just a simple TII search there will find my Alexa skill. By the way, if you are a podcaster and want your own skill, first make sure you are hosting on Libsyn, which obviously you are doing if you at all care about your podcast, and then to send me an email and I will send you info on how to get your skill built for your own podcast. Before we get into covering the Apple's earnings call, I want to remind you of what I said on the last episode. Quote, "Tuesday's call will have egg to place on some faces. I just hope it's not my face and that of other current Apple bulls like Daniel Ellen Dilger, but rather on the faces of all those analysts that, again, it seems are trying to be the most negative to, I guess, get press coverage," unquote.
You know I don't like egg on my face.
One of the items I pointed out was how would revenue in China be as a big bellwether of the call. I said if Apple could stay flat versus last year, that would be a win, given macroeconomic events in China. Flat meant matching 2017's Q1 revenue of $10.7 billion, which was down from $12.5 billion in 2016. I said if Apple went below 10 billion or reported below 10 billion in revenue, that it would dominate the coverage. So how did Apple do? Well, just 13 billion in revenue in China. Better, a lot better than most had predicted. Heck, China is almost the same size of a market now for Apple as the European Union, who came in at 13.8 billion.
You know I don't like egg on my face.
Okay, first hurdle cleared. The next big hurdle was iPhone 10 sales. I talked about a lot of the analysts out there spelling doom and gloom for the iPhone 10 based on, quote, supply chain info, unquote. I said Tim said to ignore this in the past, but they don't. Bloomberg, the Wall Street Journal, and all those that lamented in recent months that demand for the iPhone 10 was weak and anemic, and it was overpriced and could not, they couldn't possibly all be wrong, right? On the conference call, Tim Cook said the iPhone 10 was the top-selling iPhone model every week last quarter. Let me repeat that. It was the top-selling iPhone model every week last quarter. That's the first time a top-of-the-line model, since they released multiple models, was the top seller every week. Daniel Aaron Dilger at Apple Insider went into a very nice long piece on how all these reports and bloggers and analysts, how they all missed this one so bad.
You know I don't like egg on my face.
Okay, second hurdle cleared. I also talked about revenue overall and for the iPhones as being things to look for. For Q1 numbers, in 2016, Apple had $50.6 billion in revenue versus $52.9 billion in 2017. And for 2018, it was a whopping $61.1 billion with a B dollars for the quarter. For iPhone revenue, it was $32.9 billion in 2016, $33.2 billion in 2017, and for 2018 was a whopping $38 billion, just a 14.4% increase.
You know I don't like egg on my face.
Okay, third hurdle cleared. For other parts of the call, total cash on hand was $267.2 billion, with Apple returning nearly $27 billion to investors last quarter. This quarter, the dividend will be raised from 63 cents per share to 73 cents per share, a 16% increase in the dividend year over year. Revenue was up in all regions year over year. Wearable revenue was up 50% for the quarter year over year. iPhones sold overall were 52.2 million units versus 50.8 million the prior year. iPads sold were 9.1 million versus 8.9 million the year before. The bears were wrong, plain and simple, on all fronts. Everything Apple reported was positive news, and per getting egg on my face, saying I thought that the bears and analysts were wrong prior to the call, well, Apple stock finished the week last week, closing in an all-time high of $183.83 a share and a market cap of $932.8 billion. And today, Monday, it closed even higher.
No egg on my face! Not a glob! Not a glob.
Evidently, egg facials are something that some people want. Worst post of last week goes to Bill Maurer. After Apple's quarterly report, which was outstanding, especially given the macroeconomic environment for smartphones, Bill's post was, quote, Apple just good enough, unquote. Nice, Bill. And in the article, there was this nice quote. Quote, when it comes to the product lines, Apple was overall okay, unquote. Wow. Way to go, my... Oh no, it's Mr. Bill Maurer with Seeking Alpha. Let me put a little perspective on how crazy some of this is and why Apple is either still way undervalued or other companies are way, way overvalued. Last quarter, Apple services, which includes revenue from digital content services, Apple Care, Apple Pay, licensing, and other stuff, it was $9.19 billion. So that's all their non-real physical items. It's all the services they sell. And that 9.19 billion, it was right about 15% of Apple's overall revenue. So 15% of Apple's market cap is $140 billion at the end of last week. Netflix total revenue for the last quarter was $3.7 billion in revenue, almost 1/3 of Apple's services. And Netflix had a market cap ending last week of $139 billion. So pretty much right on the same level, but with 1/3 of the revenue. Facebook had a total revenue last quarter of $11.97 billion. That is around 1.3 times more than just Apple services, but has a market cap of $511 billion at the end of last week, which is 3.7 times more than Apple services. Point is this: yes, Apple is at an all-time high, but either that is still way undervalued, i.e. what you're going to hear from Warren Buffett, or some others around them are way overvalued, or maybe some combo thereof. But I guess Apple numbers were just good enough and okay last quarter. As I've stated before, I am Apple stock, I am long on Apple, and I have owned Apple stock for a long time. More info. The iPhone X was not just the best-selling iPhone the last quarter, it was the best-selling smartphone globally for all smartphones, which when Tim said it was the best-selling iPhone last quarter kind of sort of meant the same exact thing. Some of the analysts trying to work backwards from Apple unit sales and ASPs kind of sort of figured the number of iPhone X sold last quarter was around 16 million units. Compare that to Xiaomi Redmi 5A, and that was the top selling Android phone last quarter with 5.3 million units sold. If you're wondering, the sales price for the Redmi is less than 1/10 that of the ASP of the iPhone X. So not exactly apples to apples comparison there. It's kind of like apples to, chickpeas comparison. All right, now I do have to say kudos to one Bloomberg reporter that realized that he was just plain wrong in his criticism of Apple. Berlin-based Leonid Berzhitsky, or just let's call him LB, wrote a post titled, quote, "I'm sorry I criticized you, Apple. You win," unquote. He does capitulate that he really did not understand Apple and the ecosystem, but still takes a backhanded jab at Apple giving too much money back to investors and not enough into R&D. I've seen that mentioned from others, and a common theme from those still trying to be negative on Apple since the call last week was around exactly that, Apple giving too much back to investors, which is ironic. A few years ago, they complained Apple did not give enough back to investors. Can't win. And the idea Apple does not spend enough on R&D versus revenue is an old complaint as well. Just spending money on R&D like a drunken sailor does not in any way guarantee results. And Apple is still hiring like crazy. When I was in Cupertino last month, Apple's new spaceship campus, it is full. And that's just a small percentage of their employees are there. The old campus at One Infinite Loop, it's filled still. And they have like every other office space between the two buildings and off to the southwest and then some. It's hard to drive around and not see the Apple logo on a building somewhere. Additionally, Apple does something smart with their money. They buy the equipment for their manufacturers and get them to dedicate those lines to Apple, letting a lot of the R&D budget that they could be spending elsewhere, they spend it on their supply chain. So they do some really smart things with their money. And again, I think that comes back to Tim Cook and his experience in the supply chain and understanding that it doesn't mean a lot to have the greatest hit product if you can't ship in quantities needed. And nobody ships in the quantities needed like Apple does. Now, that is not at all to say that Apple is not spending in R&D. They are, and they are spending more dollar-wise than ever before. Maybe not percentage-wise of revenue, but definitely dollar-wise. Beyond the new versions of products for sale now, there are rumored VR headsets, or is it AR headsets? Some rumors say both. There is Project Titan, which is supposedly around autonomous vehicles. There is likely multiple health-related items that are being developed, plus spending on improving Siri and much, much more that will never see the light of day. So Apple definitely spends their money, but they spend it wisely, and they don't spend it foolishly on totally crazy random stuff that at least that we know of. Maybe they do, but not based on the amount of money they're spending. They don't. This episode is sponsored by Molecule. For $75 off your first order, visit molekule.com and at checkout, enter TII. Molecule is a complete reinvention of the air purifier, not just an improvement on existing outdated technology from the 1940s. Molecule was developed by a scientist whose son suffered from asthma and who was frustrated by the fact HEPA air purifiers did not relieve his son's symptoms. As a result, Dr. Goswami spent 20 years developing a completely new, totally effective way of removing indoor air pollutants. Molecule's technology development has been funded by the EPA, and this technology has been verified by science, but most importantly, it's been tested by real people. Molecule has already helped allergy and asthma sufferers around the country better cope with their conditions and significantly reduce their symptoms. Molecule introduces a breakthrough science that is finally capable of destroying air pollutants at a molecular level. Molecule's PECO technology goes beyond HEPA filtration to not just capture, but completely destroy the full spectrum of indoor air pollutants, including those 1,000 times smaller than a HEPA filter can trap. Molecule makes a meaningful impact for asthma and allergy sufferers. You know who you guys are this time of year. I'm one of them. In a study of 49 allergy sufferers presented at the American College of Asthma, Allergy, and Immunology, Molecule's technology provided dramatic, statistically significant, sustained symptom reduction within a week of use. The results have transformed lifelong allergy and asthma sufferers' lives. One customer even said that she was, quote, able to breathe through her nose for the first time in 15 years, unquote. And Molecule doesn't just have groundbreaking technology on the inside, but creates a complete clean air purification experience. From the materials used on the device, like its sleek solid aluminum shell, to a streamlined filter subscription where replacement filters arrive at your doorstep right when you need them, Molecule ensures breathing clean air is easy and seamless. Again, for $75 off your first order, visit molekule.com and at checkout, enter TII. One day later than expected, Apple last week, on Tuesday the 1st of May, released iOS 11.4 Beta 3, and there were some new things to report. First is a bug fix for 3D Touch. This had to do with using 3D Touch on the home screen right after unlocking your device, and this version appears to fix that bug. Another bug fix was with an issue where the volume slider inside Control Center would not match up with the device's current volume. Those two are now in sync. There is also where you can now use Siri to control Apple Music playback on an Apple TV. Of course, there are other bug fixes and optimizations, but no new real features I could find. On our side, we had 2 iPads running it since the 1st, so through the 7th, and no real bug or any bugs that we could see. So overall, felt really good, really solid version. And a little add on to this, Apple just jumped back to a Monday release for the betas and released iOS 11.4 Beta 4 Monday the 7th of May. I downloaded it to one of the iPads and I did a quick comparison between them side by side. Did not show anything new to me, any features, or didn't look like anything was really updated as major. From what I read, one thing that did change is the volume control icon in Control Center no longer live updates when you adjust the volume settings elsewhere. But after a couple of seconds of changing it, it does update to the current settings. It's in sync, just a little slower. There are some reports of performance improvements with Beta 4 as well that I found out there. From this point out, however, most of the updates for iOS 11.4 betas will be under the hood improvements and not feature changes. And to keep in lockstep with iOS, watchOS 4.3 Beta 3 was also released on the 1st and Beta 4 on the 7th of May. No new features are known in these releases, just basically bug fixes and optimizations for both of them. And the same exact thing to report about tvOS 11.4 Betas 3 and Beta 4. So overall, pretty boring round of updates. The Beta 3 updates were pretty stable, at least from our testing, and hopefully Beta 4 updates follow suit. Apple Pay needed to loosen the belt a couple of notches as it continues to expand. In the US, 26 new banks were added to the list supporting Apple Pay. Yeah, I know, at this point you would think all of the banks are on board, but nope, still more being added. Ironically, of the 26, 5 of them had first in their name. Clearly, they don't know what the meaning of the word first is. One, however, you can't blame, and that is Classic Bank. Them, we can let them slide. But no such slack for Incredible Bank. Come on, guys. A little late to the game, aren't you? There were also new banks added in Australia, Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, Taiwan, France, and Spain. Link in the show notes to all the banks added. It is being reported that Apple sent out an internal memo talking about microphone issues on iPhone 7 and 7 Plus units updated to iOS 11.3. Apparently, some iPhone 7 and 7 Plus users may experience mic failure after updating. Brilliant! Supposedly, the document says that even units out of warranty may still be able to receive a repair or replacement for free. One item you may see is if the speaker button is grayed out during incoming and outgoing calls, and they may not have any audio during playback of voice memos or videos created on said device. At this time, it appears to be a very small number of units that are affected, which is little solace if yours is one of those affected. Of course, if your device is one of those that is affected, schedule a Genius Bar appointment ASAP and load up the article from the show notes about this to show them, because geniuses always love when you show them you know something they don't. In other words, at this time, there is no public acknowledgement of the issue, just rumors that there's a document that Mac Rumors saw and that it's real.
Hey Rob, this is Patrick. I'm just calling about on the last show, you had talked about people getting in touch with you if they're having issues with, I think you said Bluetooth or audio playback on their phone. My wife and I are both on the beta, and we both have 6S Plus phones. And I have noticed recently, and this is just at home, because I use the same pair of Bluetooth headphones at work as I do at home. But when I'm at home, it seems to, I don't even know how to explain it, it just kind of cuts in and out really fast, and it's really irritating. It even does it at home on a speaker. I have a Bose Mini, SoundLink Mini that I've had for a few years, so I don't know if it's maybe a Bluetooth issue. But like I said, I use the same Bluetooth headphones at work as I do at home, and I don't have the issue at work. I've also used a couple different pair of wired headphones, and that doesn't seem to cause a problem. There is another issue that we both have when you play something, whether it be from the Apple Music's library, or if you play something from a different, say an audiobook from Audible or any other source, when you lock your phone, it kind of for a couple seconds does kind of an interruption thing too. So, and that's been doing that for a while. And I noticed it on my wife's phone the other day in the car when we were playing music. So we are definitely having issues with that. I don't know if it's exactly the same thing. And then just one other thing, I kind of had this issue today that I realized I didn't know my voicemail was full because my voicemails weren't deleting. And what I ran into is after searching the web, I found that if you put your phone into airplane mode, you should be able to delete those voicemails from your phone, but that wasn't the case for me. And I think this has to do with if you have Wi-Fi calling, because I do have Wi-Fi calling on. I also had to turn off my Wi-Fi in order to accomplish that. So if anybody else is having that problem out there where they can't delete their voicemails and turning on airplane mode doesn't help, try turning off Wi-Fi. And that's all. Thanks.
Patrick, thank you for the feedback. I'm going to go into the email bag on this as well. Hi, Rob. I was just listening to TII episode 462. I heard you comment on the iOS 11.3 audio stuttering issue. I wanted to give you some detailed information on this. I heard you say that you thought it was bad headphones causing the problem. I don't know about everyone, but for me, it's unrelated to headphones. It happens with wired headphones, Bluetooth headphones. It even happens in speaker mode with the phone speakers, iPhone 6S. It even happens when I'm using the earpiece on a phone call. For me, it started as soon as I updated to 11.3. What I'm experiencing is not skips in the audio like a bad headphone wire would give you. It is actually repeats of small sections of the audio 3 or 4 times, sort of like a broken record. And it happens consistently at about 30 to 40 seconds into the audio stream. Doesn't matter if it's music, podcast, Pandora, Amazon Music, or even phone calls. They all act the same. And it only happens that one time as long as I'm at that particular audio stream. When I change to something else, it will do it again. Love the show. Thanks for all you do. Regards, Tim in Atlanta. Well, Tim and Patrick, both of you again, thanks. Does look like other people are having this issue out there on the stuttering, and so hopefully future updates of iOS will take care of that problem for you. Now that Apple has released their numbers for Q1, consulting companies can release their best guesses for smartphone shipments for the market. And IDC is a furthest out of the gate, with Apple taking second place with 15.6% of smartphones shipped by number of units in Q1. First place was the Samsung with 23.4%. Again, Apple at second place, 15.6%. Huawei was third at 11.8%. Xiaomi was fourth at 8.4%. And rounding out the top 5 was Oppo at 7.1%. Xiaomi was the biggest increase of all of them for year over year. They increased 88%. But they also sell $100 smartphones, some less than that. As we said before, the most important share number is profit share. And with 16% unit sales, Apple is taking home 86% of the profit. Though it's kind of nice of Apple to leave that other 14% for all those other manufacturers to fight over. IDC also released their tablet market share data for Q1. On this front, Apple and the iPad were number one with 28.8% of the market share. Second was Samsung with 16.7%, Huawei in third with 10%, Lenovo in fourth with 6.6%, and Amazon in fifth with 3.5%. The iPad's 28.8% last quarter is up from Q1 2017, where they had just 24.9% of the market share. Amazon, however, a year ago had 6% of market, so it looks like Amazon's loss was Apple's gain. Here are the percentages of the tablet shipments for iPads in the first quarter of each year since 2013. 2013, 40.2%. 2014, 32.7%. 2015, 26.8%. 2016, 25.9%. 2017, 24.9%. And then 2018, 28.8%. 2018 marks the first time iPad market share percentage went up in Q1 versus the previous year. I keep coming across, or is it tripping over, or is it stepping in, rumors about the next gen AirPods coming soon. Not this year, not likely. At least not for any feature enhancement reasons. Why do I say that? Well, the first gen AirPods are still hard to find. In the quarterly conference call, Tim Cook, per the AirPods, said, quote, AirPods are incredibly popular and we're seeing them in more and more places, in the gym, in coffee shops, wherever people are enjoying music on their Apple devices. This product is a runaway hit and they're working hard to meet the incredible demand, unquote. Tim also said sales of the AirPods last quarter reached a new high for the March quarter. The only real reason Apple would release a new version of the AirPod would be to address what seems to be a supply side constraint, i.e., make them more makeable. Externally, any new version would look pretty much identical, and if they work identically, well, Apple might not even mention that there's a change in the design. I love my AirPods, use them every day, and when I travel, I see them everywhere now. I did have a conference call recently with two folks on the other end that they split a pair for the call. Note, when you do this, only one of the mics works. Which one? That's up to Apple, I guess. I don't know what their reasoning is, but only one person was loud and the other was distant. And when they switched them around, the microphone stayed working with that AirPod. It didn't stay with the one person. So Apple makes some sort of arbitrary reason on which AirPod's going to work on the mic wise and goes with that. If you use texture, first, thanks. Well, if you sign up with our promo code, that is. And second, I hope you are not wanting to use it on your Windows computer. Apple is giving the boot on Windows. Well, at least the Windows app. And that will be at the end of June when the Windows app will stop working. Just make sure you get the iOS app version so you can still get all those great magazines. And no, there is not a web version out there. The texture app for Android and Amazon Fire devices will, however, continue on. In fairness to Apple, they might not have been the one that was originally planning to kill it on Windows. It seems the Windows app version is rarely updated, and the reviews overall for the Windows app were, let's just say, not up to par or anywhere close to it when you look at the reviews for iOS app experience and what you get overall with texture. So, probably not a lot of tears going to be shed over this one. 9to5Mac is reporting that Apple has sent a new support doc to Apple retail stores and authorized service centers this weekend for repairing the rear camera of iPhone Xs for users having issues with Face ID not working due to a bad camera. While I'm not sure how repairing the rear camera fixes things on the front true depth camera, it's supposed to, so okay. But evidently the telephoto lens is somehow tied together with it. If that repair does not work, then they will replace the whole iPhone with a new iPhone X. It did not and does not sound like it is a widespread issue, but with so many units out there, there are going to be a small number of units with issues. And I did have a couple of people saying that their FaceTime had never worked and Apple quickly just replaced the device. That was a few months ago. From the latest reports I've heard of anybody that listens having an issue with FaceTime not working. Now it sounds like they will try to repair it first, replace it only now as a second option. From the Google Plus community and Myron Euchre in said community, quote, I received an email this morning inviting me to join the Apple Heart Study. I checked and I have been in there for the study for 43 days, unquote. Well, Myron, you are not alone. Not the 43-day part, but getting the email part. Apple was casting a wide net this time around and caught some that they'd already participated or are already participating. This is per the Heart Study that I highly recommended any Apple Watch listeners to this show sign up for, and kudos and thanks to all that did. But Apple is looking for more folks to participate, and they are carpet bombing their users. And it looks like this time Apple forgot to, filter out those that already had signed up for the app. Though, if you have not signed up and want more info, go back to episode 459 and jump to the 23-minute and 37-second mark to learn more. You can also just ask Alexa to do that, by the way, or really ask Alexa, quote, Alexa, ask TII to go to episode 459, unquote. And then when you're there, say, quote, Alexa, ask TII to go forward 23 minutes and 30 seconds, unquote. I want to thank Storyworth for sponsoring today's episode. I am an actual Storyworth customer back from Christmas 2016 when I purchased this for my father. Storyworth is where they will send you or someone you choose a different question each week. And then at the end of the year, they pull it all together and make a very nice hardcover printed book with the answers. I mentioned on previous episodes how I purchased this for my dad, or really for my entire family, but questions for my dad, so we can learn more about his past, as my mom would tend to dominate conversations just a wee bit. Well, I could see Mom was a little jealous Dad was getting these great questions last year, so this year we are getting it for Mom for Mother's Day. How it works is pretty simple. 1, you purchase a subscription for someone you love, and each week, Storyworth sends them an email with a question about their life. 2, they simply reply to the email with their story, or they can record it over the phone by calling Storyworth number. All stories are private and only shared with family that you choose. 3, after a year, their stories will be bound into a beautiful keepsake book. And if you want, you can order multiple books up front or later on. If you are looking for a great last-minute Mother's Day gift and one that keeps giving for the whole year round, Storyworth is something I highly recommend. Go to storyworth.com/TII to save $20 off the purchase price. That means the book and the Year of Weekly Questions is just $59. That is a great price for the best Mother's Day gift. Again, go to storyworth.com/TII to save $20. Always fun when you get a sponsor that you are already a customer of come in. When the questions are done and the hardcover book is ready, by the way, I plan on not just getting the one copy you get when you sign up, but purchasing the extra copies for the other grandkids who can then pass them on to the great-grandkids and their great-great-grandkids and so on and so on. Looks like from some fine print in Apple Sport Docs that they just outed that the HomePod is coming soon to Japan. It also mentioned France and Germany, but those two countries Apple had said would get the HomePod in spring, so that means sometime before June 21st. But the Japan timing had not been announced. So if you are in Japan and wondering, it looks like for a launch sometime in the next 4 to 6 weeks, you'll be able to get that HomePod. Small little rumor, and that is that this year's new iPhones that are sans the headphone jack will also be sans the Lightning to 3.5 millimeter headphone jack adapter, also well known as the 1/8-inch headphone jack there. So the little adapter that this past year's units and the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus came with would not be there in the new iPhones come this fall. This adapter sells for $9 from Apple on its own, which is just about the cheapest physical item you can buy from Apple. Well, we'll strike that. It is the cheapest, lowest cost priced physical item you can buy from Apple, made by Apple. The MagSafe to MagSafe 2 converter is next at $9.99. So it's not like Apple has a whole wide range of products under $10. They only have a couple. On the breaking rumor news items, there was one that hit right before finishing up the show notes, so I'm putting it back here in the rumors section of the show. Maka Takara had a new report with additional details on the new iPhone models to be released this year. Most details are pretty much what we've heard before at some point. The 6.5-inch iPhone 10 Plus will roughly be the size of today's iPhone 8 Plus, according to, quote, reliable supplier information sources, unquote. Or in other words, in our best guess, the 6.5-inch OLED iPhone 10 Plus will be slightly thicker than the 8 Plus and would be 7.7 millimeters thick. The rumored 6.1-inch 2018 iPhone or iPhone 9 will have an LCD display for lower cost, but it will also feature Face ID. So all three units would have Face ID, and the current iPhone 10 will get a slight upgrade with some changes around the rear camera. But here is the one bit of news all iPhone 10 users wanted to hear. iOS 12 will support Face ID unlock whether the device is in portrait or landscape orientation. So no more only in portrait orientation to unlock. Overall, nothing really shocking or unexpected in the rumors. Just like, he was kind of speculating rather than being told by someone in the supply chain. Just saying. Another item on the rumor front is about 5G. And some saying Apple might roll out 5G on the top of the line iPhone this year. No. Apple's history with 3G, 4G/LTE, and I will wager 5G is not to be the first out the gate. They tend to wait until others launch, learn from the others' mistakes, and then launch. Plus, early on, the chips quantity-wise to fully support a new iPhone launch just aren't going to be there. So when you see rumors about iPhones and 5G, Apple will not be the first or even the second to market. Being first has not been Apple's motivation when it comes to the newer, higher speed networks. Plus, it takes time for the new networks to roll out. The combined T-Mobile Sprint company, it's not even combined yet, just publicly engaged. And they are the ones that are talking about a reason to be allowed to marry so that they can be the first to roll out 5G. we are ways off from widespread 5G. I would be very surprised if the first 5G iPhone rolls out prior to 2020. So again, take any 5G rumor posts you see this year with a huge grain of salt. One rumor based on some code is that HomePod will be getting calendar support with Siri with the release of iOS 11.4 when it's fully released. Currently, Siri requests on HomePod just work for messages, reminders, and notes. These are then associated with the iPhone used to set up the HomePod and only works for one user when both devices are on the same Wi-Fi network. In Beta 3 and later of iOS 11.4, when given an example of setting up HomePod, it shows the calendar icon along with messages, reminders, and notes. There has not been any beta software for the HomePod, so it's really tough to say if any other new features are coming with iOS 11.4 and what should hopefully be at the time a new version of the HomePod OS. I would be very surprised if when it is published and updated, there are not multiple other new features added, because right now it is still pretty anemic in feature set compared to the competition. Very interesting article sent into me from a few different listeners. It is from USA Today and was written by Jefferson Graham. The article is called, quote, "Apple took 8 days to give me the data it had collected on me. It was eye-opening," unquote. Previously, he had also asked Facebook and Google what data they had on him, and he says it was far more than he thought, going back far longer than he would have imagined. Really, Jeff, did you not read all the news lately? Those companies know and keep everything about you, which, by the way, he confirms early on in the article. Then he gets into what Apple has about him. In a nutshell, not much and shockingly little. Quote, "And there's not much there because Apple says the information is primarily kept on your device and not on its servers. The one sentence highlight a list of my downloads, purchases, and repairs, but not my search history through the Siri personal assistant or Safari browser," unquote. He also said to even get this sparse amount of data, Apple made him jump through hoops and other hoops to prove he was who he said he was, as it should be. You don't want to give up this info too easy. But with Google and Facebook, they kind of lifted their skirt, so to speak, way too easy. And none of this should be a surprise to any longtime listeners of this show, but nice to see it summed up so nicely in this article on USA Today, which has even more info that if you are interested, you should definitely check out. It is a good short read. Link in the show notes for episode 463.
Hi, Rob. My name is Charlie. I was listening to your podcast on iOS 460, I think it was. You had a guy on there named Brett. He was talking about the Umail app. Now, I use VoiceOver, and when I tried to select my carrier for the Umail app, it didn't work. So I hate to say this, but Umail is not user-friendly with VoiceOver. So I'm just calling to tell you that. Sorry. If you have any other apps that can block restricted calls, that would be good, that work with VoiceOver, that you know that will work with VoiceOver. Because the other listeners need to think about people that use VoiceOver, because I was hoping that the Umail app would work with me, but it doesn't. I was bummed when I found out that it wasn't VoiceOver friendly. I will talk to you later if I come up with more questions. I am up to date on iOS 11.3.1. Talk to you later. Bye.
Charlie, thanks for the feedback. And if anyone has any suggestions for Charlie and can help Charlie out, give us a call, 206-666-6364. That's 206-MOONDOG. Or send an email to todayinios@gmail.com. Into the email bag we go. Hi, Rob. Having consumed the Kool-Aid, by having an iPhone, Apple Watch, and AirPods, and seeing how seamlessly they all work together, I have turned my attention to one of the most used texts I use my iPhone for, which is podcast. It's wonderful to be able to use Downcast and or Overcast and sync playlist episodes between my iPhone and iPad. Now I would like to be able to do the same thing with my Apple Watch. I have tried Minicast, Outcast, and Watchcast in the past with varying success. You can download episodes to the watch to play, but without the phone. But if you wish to go back to the iPhone and resume where you left off, you have to click the location where you are in the episode on the watch, then fast forward to the iPhone to get to that point. Also, let's say you're going for a walk, you download episodes to the watch, and on your walk workout, it goes longer. It's clumsy to download new content while on the walk. And finally, after your walk, you have to go back to the iPhone and delete the episode you listened to so they are no longer in your unplayed list. Bottom line is, it is a pain, and there should be a better way. I would be happy with an app that I don't have to download but stream to watch directly if it gives me the ability to keep my playlists synced between all my devices. I know this is not the fault of developers, but is due to Apple putting limitations on the iOS of the watch. Thanks for letting me vent and put my wish list for a perfect podcast app out into the world. Regards, John. Well, John, thank you very much for that feedback. And hopefully there will be improvements to the Apple Watch integration. But right now, yeah, that one, getting it over there, it's not the easiest in the world. Back to email bag. Hi, Rob. Love the show. Husband and I have been listening for years and love each episode. Is there a way to remove ads from the YouTube app? Regards, Crystal. Well, Crystal, I'm going to throw that one out to the audience. If anyone knows a good way to remove ads from the YouTube app, give us a call, 206-666-6364. That's 206-MOON-DOG. Apple is now inviting would-be developers and entrepreneurs to Apple for one of the 400 free places at this year's Apple Developer Academy. You have until June 8th to apply, so snap. It is open to students from anywhere in the world. Tuition is fully sponsored by Apple, who also gives students a free Mac and iPhone, along with support for their living expenses in Naples, Italy. Apple will then review the applications after June 8th and invite the most promising applicants to take a test and attend an interview in Naples, London, Munich, or Paris. So, while open to the world, you kind of sort of need to be in the EU for it to make a lot of sense, or if not, there to plan a vacation at the spur of a minute to get over there and not just be just for this simple interview, which, you know, is so realistic for most students to be able to do this, right? That said, if anyone does apply, let me know. At Microsoft Build this year, Microsoft announced Your Phone, an app which will allow you to mirror your iPhone on a Windows PC. Also works for Android. The iOS version of Microsoft's Edge browser will be required. It is expected functionality will be somewhat limited, but somewhat is better than completely limited. More news on this in the future, of course. Do you have a pet?
Once I had a Daggett. Then the Cylons came.
Do you have a pet?
I have an angry bird.
Do you have a pet?
Mogwai are kinda nice, as long as you don't feed them after midnight.
Do you have a pet?
I used to have an abo, but it turned on me.
Do you have a pet?
I thought about getting a tribble, several actually.
Thanks again to Storyworth for sponsoring this episode. Mother's Day is almost here. Get your mom and yourself and your kids the best Mother's Day present ever. Please go to storyworth.com/TII to save $20 off the purchase price. And before we go today, I want to remind you to send in your feedback to the show, 206-666-6364. That's 206-MOON-DOG. Or record your feedback and email to the show at todayandios@gmail.com. Feedback can be a question or a comment for something someone said on this episode, or it can be a question or rant you have about something else, an app, a product review, good or bad, as long as it is iOS related, it is welcomed. I'm always looking for new artwork to feature on the show that you've created on an iOS device. Just put some TII branding on it and send it in. And of course, we're always looking for more music created on an iOS device to play on the show, just like at the end of today's episode. So play a long song from Porter. This is your show, and your feedback is greatly desired. And also, do not forget to check out our moderated Google Plus community by going to todayinios.com/community. Quick reminder, if you are an app dev or an iBook author, email me if you want your app or iBook featured in the promo giveaway segment for free. We just need the 5 promo codes or more to give away. Simply email me at todayinios@gmail.com and please include a 60-second or less audio review of your app or iBook indicating you are the dev or author. Also, when you send in the promo codes, please make sure to let me know when they expire. Today's show was also brought to you by Molecule. For $75 off your first order, visit molekule.com and at checkout, enter TII. Finally, check out the TII app, which is free to you. Search for TII in the iTunes App Store. It is the best way to consume the show and to get push notifications each time a new episode of TII is released. It is fully voiceover friendly, of course. Please go right now and download the TII app or get the update. And if you have an Alexa device, simply say, Alexa, enable TII. Until the next time, I'm your host, Rob, reminding you to phone different. This show is hosted on Libsyn.com and part of the Wizard Media Network. If you are looking for hosting, go to Libsyn.com. That's Libsyn.com for hosting for your podcast and for creation of your own smartphone app. The Today in iOS podcast can also be found on the free Stitcher radio app. Just search for TII.